Daily Tech News Show is made possible by you, the listener. Thanks to all of you, including Ali Sanjabi, AB Puppy, Dale Mulcahy, and with our long weekend, we got a bunch of brand new patrons. Thank you, Benny, Vince, John, Francisco, Rich, Jason, and Steve. Woo-hoo. Welcome, everyone. On this episode of DTNS, the Gelsinger era is over at Intel. What does that mean? Do you care if Apple uses aluminum for its phones? And Allison Sheridan has softened on Apple's password manager. But why? This is the Daily Tech News for Monday, December 2nd, 2024. I'm in Los Angeles. I'm also Tom Merritt.
And I'm also in Los Angeles. I'm Allison Sheridan from the Podfeed Podcast Empire.
And I'm the show's producer, Roger Chang.
I had no idea you became an empire. Congratulations. Does that make you empress?
It does. It really does. And I accept the honor. Yes.
Fantastic to have you, Allison. Thanks for being here. We've got some big news, so let's get right to the quick hits. Earlier this year, Banana Pie, yes, that's a thing, not Raspberry Pi, Banana Pi, but you know, in the ballpark, released an open WRT router for $30. It was a pretty simple box, but you know, $30. So low specs, not a big deal. Open source router software enthusiasts loved it. Banana Pi has now collaborated with the nonprofit Software Freedom Conservancy to create the Open WRT1 Wi-Fi router with better specs. This one has a switch to let you flash the NOR and NAND parts of flash memory separately, which they say will forever prevent bricking. And I say that's a silly thing to say because somebody's going to figure out how to brick this. But it's a good way to, you know, keep bricking as low possibility as you can. It's available for $89, or if you just want the standalone logic board, $68.42.
I love nerds. If you don't use Google's Waze for navigation, you might not know about its incident reports that let you know if there's debris in the road or maybe a car stopped along the side, including police cars. Those incident alerts are now showing up on Google Maps. The alerts will say they're from Waze users and give you a chance to confirm or deny that they're still relevant before disappearing. And don't do that while you're driving, please.
No, let the passenger do that. Amazon is holding its reInvent 2024 conference. This is their AWS, Amazon Web Services conference. Among the announcements are a data transfer terminal. Starting in New York and Los Angeles, but with more locations to come, businesses can take their physical storage to an Amazon data center and plug it in to upload at 400 gigabits per second. Yes, SneakerNet, alive and well at AWS. AWS is also announcing a security incident response service that'll help businesses recover faster from cyber attacks like ransomware. And Amazon Connect, which is their contact center service, will get some more generative model tools.
I love that data transfer terminal so much.
I know, me too. It's so funny.
The U.S. added its fourth round of restrictions on the export of advanced chips. They now require makers of advanced memory chips, also known as high bandwidth memory, to get a license from the U.S. Department of Commerce before exporting them to certain countries, most prominently China. These memory chips are used with neural processing units on generative processes. The top three makers of high bandwidth memory are South Korea's SK Hynix and Samsung, as well as U.S.-based Micron. The Korean companies must abide by the restrictions because of the use of IP in the manufacture.
And thank you, Allison, for auto-correcting my typo of high bandwidth.
You heard that little lag where I was about to say thigh bandwidth.
It was a totally different kind of bandwidth. Friday, the International Telecommunications Union, or ITU, and the International Cable Protection Committee, the ICPC, announced a submarine telecommunication cable resilience advisory board, or STCRAB. They're not initializing it. It'll have 40 members drawn from governments, regulators, industry, academia. And the idea for this group is to promote the timely repair of cables and the reduction of risk of damage. So best practices to follow for boats as well as cable maintenance to keep that from happening. The ICPC estimates that an average of 150 to 200 cuts occur worldwide each year and require about 3 cable repairs per week. most news about cable cuts is when there is a suspected foul play. Like, I think this country ordered that ship to drag its anchor on purpose. But they don't even mention that in this report because most actual cable cuts come from accidents, natural hazards, or equipment failure. So before we even get to the conspiracy theory stuff, maybe we can just cut down on all the stuff that doesn't involve espionage or.
And by the
or
way,
malicious
the
behavior.
sharks biting the cables is actually sort of an urban myth. I mean, there's
Yeah.
a video of a shark biting an undersea cable, but that's not actually the main contributor to this.
They don't mention sharks. That's a good point. They don't mention sharks biting the cables in this report either. So I think that is lower on the priority list as well. Intel announced that CEO Pat Gelsinger retired on Sunday, December 1st, and also stepped down from the company's board of directors. Intel CFO David Zinsner and the general manager of client computing, Michelle Johnston Holthouse, are now interim co-CEOs while the board searches for a permanent replacement. Holthouse was also named to a newly created position of CEO of Intel Products. That will oversee the non-foundry business. So the PC chips, the data center chips, all of that stuff. The management of the foundry business will remain unchanged. They didn't touch that part, interestingly. Independent chair Frank Yeary becomes interim executive chairman of the board. And Bloomberg sources say that the board gave Gelsinger two options: quit or get fired, basically.
So retired was in quotes, right?
Yeah, you can retire or we can remove you, your choice. And I guess Pat said, well, I'll leave now because there were no rumors of this happening. Like there was a meeting and Gelsinger left right away. Roger is going to join us to talk about this because I know he follows the chip space really closely. Intel's chip revenue has been down. The shareholders have been wanting the foundry to be spun out, and it wasn't until this fall that Gelsinger decided to do that. But really, it does seem to be that the board is going to continue to follow Gelsinger's plan of having a foundry business and a product business. They're just, in all of their announcements, saying they're going to put more resources back into product and they're going to work on efficiency and how did they put it? Driving returns on foundry investments. So Roger, it sounds to me like they just didn't think the money was being spent in the right priority.
I think it was that. I also think maybe the impression that to step back a bit, when Gelsinger took over, Intel was already kind of in a not good place. And they brought him on board because they needed to do some significant changes to the business. And when Gelsinger took over, I mean, he refocused their efforts on chip, but also the foundry business, which was something that they kind of let kind of become laggard compared to TSMC and Global Foundries. I think that's partly the money. They weren't seeing the returns that they were hoping to. AMD has definitely not just caught up, but I think they're on the verge of becoming on par with Intel in the x86 business, especially with the new Zen 5 architecture coming out this year. I think not this year, next year, 2025. And I think a lot of it is just people were impatient. They wanted things to kind of speed up a little bit. There was a lot to do, and I don't think it's entirely fair for Gelsinger to get all the blame because he is just one person. But he was the CEO, and he does ultimately shoulder that responsibility of not meeting the expectations, especially with 18A, which was the new manufacturing process that they were developing to catch up to TSMC, the 7 and 3 nanometer process.
Yeah, I mean, it's NVIDIA sells all the chips to the data centers. Intel was not able to scale and sell chips to the data centers anywhere close. And meanwhile, there were other of their various lunches being eaten that you just mentioned, right?
And, to use a metaphor, I mean, he took control of a container ship, and they don't move like a jet ski, right? You can't just automatically do a 180 and go back the other direction. I mean, it takes a lot of effort, a lot of time, and a lot of investment. I mean, this is the thing. The CHIPS Act was sort of a boon for Intel because it did help get some of the manufacturing plants up at a much lower cost than if they had to do it straight out of pocket.
Have they already actually spent CHIPS Act money? I mean, that stuff's just
No, it's
really,
just been earmarked.
Yeah, so that didn't help
that just
them
helps
get
the
foundries up
planning.
yet.
Yeah, well,
planning.
I mean, this is the thing, though. Everything is planning, right? Chips, foundry business takes, when you build a new plant, you got to factor in, what, 3 years? Or
Yeah,
so?
but I thought you were saying that they spent that money to actually build those plants, and they can't have yet.
No, they didn't. But if I said to you, you're going to build a new home, I have earmarked $1.5 million for you to spend when you come past the design phase and it's all been and it's all past zoning and stuff. That changes how you plan versus you're going to have to spend everything out of pocket. You're going to build a more modest house or not even build a house at all, maybe a duplex or something.
Gotcha.
It's
in this metaphor, Gelsinger is an architect, but he's not a mortgage financer.
Yeah.
You know?
So 3 years is not a long time in this size of a container ship.
No, for 3. I mean,
I'll be
Intel should
honest.
have been.
From the engineering side, I think Gelsinger has done an impressive job turning Intel towards where it needs to go. I just feel like the board was like, "Yeah, we need a business person because you're moving too slow."
Yeah, and there's definitely a feeling of, at least I get a feeling of impatience of that.
I don't think they made the wrong choice in having Gelsinger turn this around. I think they got him, like you say, they got impatient.
So you said that they set up the new CEO of the foundry, right?
No, the CEO of product. And that tells me, first of all, they didn't think Gelsinger was spending enough on product. And they wanted Foundry to be more autonomous. And there's 2 reasons for that. They think you need to spend on product because that's what Intel's good at and that's where you can remain competitive. And Foundry is not a core business. So you want to develop it and probably spin it off and sell it. Okay. And creating a CEO of product starts to look like maybe like,
that's the real Intel.
We'll have a CEO of product and a CEO of Foundry. Oh, yeah, that makes it easier to split it into 2 companies at some point, right?
Which is probably what they're going to do eventually. I mean, they're going to do what AMD with Global Foundries. Spin that up.
Which would take Intel back to being fabless, I guess it was never
Intel
totally
was never
fabless. Yeah, but it would take Intel back to not making chips for other people, I guess is where my head.
Which is something they just started doing.
Yeah.
By the way, it's not something that they've been doing for a while.
But yeah, you're right. It would make Intel fabless, not fabulous. Well, it could also make them fabulous, but not making their own chips, which most chip companies don't. It's the TSMCs of the world that make the chips.
Back in the day, everyone, even IBM, made their own chips.
Yeah, but it hasn't been that way for how long?
Oh, yeah, since 20 years.
All right, let's talk Apple phone cases. There's been a lot of buzz around this, and I'm confused, and Allison's going to help me understand this. The rumor has been that Apple will change all of their iPhone cases to aluminum next year.
And you don't mean the cases you buy to stick on your phone.
No, that's right. The actual case of the phone that Apple makes that the innards are inside. For years, Apple made its Pro models with a steel chassis, and then last year changed that to titanium, while the regular models have aluminum. Except that word chassis is confusing. Last week, The Information reported its sources said Apple was going to switch from steel and titanium to aluminum frames, and frames is the right word to use. On Monday, Instant Digital said that Apple won't do that. It didn't provide backing for this. It just has a decent track record on leaks, follows Apple, and says, in my opinion, it would be silly. They won't do that. 9to5Mac points out that Apple refers to the band as being titanium. That's the part around the outside, right?
Not the part with your hands.
Yeah, you've got 2 glass frame. You've got a glass front and a glass back, and then you've got a titanium band, or you have an aluminum band, or you have a steel band, depending on your model, right? What 9to5Mac points out is that Apple refers to that as a band, but uses the word frame for the part inside your phone, behind the glass that you never see. And that has been aluminum in all of its models for a while. So it might be that they're not changing to aluminum. It might be that just some suppliers used confusing language in the information. I don't blame the information, got this report and said, oh, it looks like they're changing. And maybe they're not. Maybe they're not changing the band and they're not changing the frame. And it's just all a confusing thing. But even if they were to change the band from titanium back to aluminum, why would we care, Allison?
Well, I'm going to make sure we highlight every confusion. The band right now on the iPhone 16 Pro is titanium. The band on the iPhone 16 is aluminum.
The non-Pro is aluminum.
The non-Pro, the vanilla iPhone 16 is aluminum. So neither of those are steel right now. And so we're just talking about that band around the outside. The first thing to know in thinking about whether you care about this or not is that aluminum is lower density, so lighter per unit volume, than titanium. But titanium is a lot stronger. And it's also harder. So strong and hard are two different things. So titanium has a 150 to 250 Rockwell hardness versus 15 to 100 for aluminum. And the reason you care about that number is that titanium is more resistant to scratching and deformation. I remember Bart Bouchat's on my show talking about how he doesn't use a case on his titanium phone, and he's dropped it a bunch of times, and he swears that it heals itself. It doesn't get those little dings and scratches. I don't know about the healing part, but that's what it feels like to him. But it doesn't really seem to scratch up as much, and that's because of that Rockwell hardness number. The problem is that titanium is way more expensive because it's a rare metal to start with. So extraction from the earth is more difficult. It costs more, but it's also more difficult to machine than aluminum. And on top of all of that, the price is more volatile than the price of aluminum. Aluminum pricing's been pretty stable for a long time, but all kinds of things affect the titanium price, including geopolitical things. It definitely causes all kinds of problems. So if you want your phone to be lighter and less expensive, and you're willing to sacrifice those scratches and dings and dents, then you do want aluminum. So that's the real question. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, okay. So that clears it up a lot for me. Thank you for explaining that. I get why if Apple announces that it's aluminum instead of titanium, I might see an advantage. I still don't understand why people in December of 2024 are spending so much time talking about, they might switch to aluminum. Is it just that there's no other rumors that are more interesting? Because this feels mildly interesting to me when they announce it, but not something I'd be like, I'm so excited they're going to change it to aluminum,
I just think it's a fun game that people like to play, that the instant one model comes out, or possibly weeks before a model comes out, especially with the iPhone, is that they immediately start talking about, but what about the next one?
Yeah,
because that's fun for some people. I don't know. I don't
is this
spend a lot of time
the most exciting possible change to the next iPhone? That tells me it's not going to be very different.
Yeah, we passed down Apple Watches to our son-in-law and our daughter, and they asked us, they said, what's the difference between the one you gave me last year and the one you're giving me this year? And I was like, always on. Yeah, that's it. It's always on.
I remember
that's
now.
what you got on that, because I think Nolan jumped 2 versions.
That is a more significant difference, I suppose, because I don't have to wait for it to turn on. But yeah.
But unless they add another button, and I already have to count, if I reach into my spy belt to try to figure out how to turn the volume up, I got to go, okay, there's 3 buttons on this side, 2. Okay, it's that one.
I hate that third button. I have it on Shazam right now. I think I might change it to flashlight, but I don't know what to do.
I set it to one, what did I set it to? I set it to something good.
I had it set to translate, but
I set it to open my garage door, but then I accidentally pressed it when I wasn't in town. I was in Africa, so I had to take that one off.
Yeah, okay, I can see that. I can see myself doing that too.
Be careful what you wish for.
Folks, if you have feedback about anything that gets brought up on the show, one way to get in touch with us is the social networks, and we simplified things. Threads and Instagram have now joined X, Blue Sky, and Mastodon as being at DTNS Show. At DTNS Show on all those platforms. X, Threads, Blue Sky, mstdn.social is our server. But, you put at DTNS Show, that'll probably show up across the Fediverse. TikTok is our only lagger. That one is still Daily Tech News Show. But everything else at DTNS Show, talk to us there. We'll talk back. On a recent blog post, Allison wrote how she was warming up to Apple's password management tool. Now, Allison, originally you were skeptical. In fact, you thought it was kind of dangerous to use Apple's password management tool. What changed? Why did you think it was dangerous, and what changed your mind?
Well, the biggest thing I thought about was people are jumping on the idea of using Apple passwords, and it's replaced, for anybody who's not an Apple fangirl, it's replaced their old keychain access, which was an iCloud keychain that was really kind of confusing and arcane. And now it's a kind of a fledgling password manager, I would call it. And it is very convenient. It'll store your passwords, generate passwords. It'll do one-time passcodes. It'll do passkeys. So it has a lot of capabilities. The reason I've been nervous about it is because people don't realize that they now have their password manager locked just behind the passcode on their phone. It is possible to still have a 4-digit passcode, even though certain actions will require you to change it to 6. A friend of mine had it set to 4 and then had Apple passwords running on it. And that makes me really nervous. You know, my password for my password manager, 1Password, is like 68 characters long. It's got upper lowercase numbers and a goat in the middle of it. You know, I mean, it's complicated.
Does it have a goat?
It does. It does.
Oh,
it's this.
wow.
Oh, I don't want to tell you what position it's in.
No. Yeah, stop it. Yeah, interesting.
So I was anxious about that. And if you have a password to log into your Mac, that's the other way it's been secured. So if you're going to use a password, the Apple Password Manager, you better start at least with 6 digits. But again, that's just 6 digits. Can somebody see you doing it? Does someone already know your birthday? You know, don't make it your birthday. And so I was really kind of nervous about people using it. But I go to a friend of mine's house every year to help her make her Christmas card labels. And every single year, I try to convince her to use a password manager. And every single year, she says, okay, I'll do it. I'll really do it. I'll get 1Password. I'll set it up. And I've told her, I said, look, it's a real pain to get started, but I've got my friend Pat Dengler. She's a certified Apple consultant. She'll come help you do it. You got to pay her a little bit, but it's not worth my time to help you because it's a pain. I don't want to do it. So she'll come over. She'll help you. She's got her phone numbers. Every year, she hasn't done it. Every year, she hasn't done it. This year, when she immediately said, yeah, no, I didn't do it again this year, I said, you know what? Let's upgrade you to iOS 18 and let's take a look at the password app. And it was extraordinary, Tom. She took to it like a fish to water. I mean, it showed me that she had her passwords in plain text in her contacts. So it would say Verizon or Bank of America, and there would be the password in there.
I mean, that's her password manager then. So that was certainly
handy.
As insecure as password manager, definitely less secure as password.
Right. Because it didn't, obviously not encrypted in any way, shape, or form, not requiring
encrypted
anything.
on the drive, I guess.
But
not
plain text. So so I showed her how she could use the Apple Password Manager. We opened it up, and it had been pre-populated because she'd been saying yes in Safari to saving her passwords, not ever knowing she was doing that. And when she saw how easy it was to log in, she said, hey, I should erase this over in my contacts, shouldn't I?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
that's a good
I could
thought.
never been more
That's
proud.
good that she thought that way. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, and she enjoyed doing it. We did 3 of them where we went and we tested it, made sure it worked. She got in there from the password manager, and she was able to go in and log in much more quickly than looking it up on her phone. And she said, "This is so fun. I'm going to do the rest of them tonight."
That's great. I love that.
I was so proud. I was so happy. I haven't checked to see that she actually did. I'll find out next year. But just the fact that it felt easy and obvious and was a good way to go. And I made her change her password, her passcode to her phone because it was 4 digits.
Yeah.
And she immediately said, I know my birthday. No. Okay, my husband's birthday. No. We went through 4 or 5 of these
My
until
cat's
she
name,
came up
the
with
street I
one.
grew up in. Yeah.
She eventually came up with one that was something I would never have guessed on her, and
Yeah.
I couldn't repeat if you held a gun to my head. So
Sure.
she,
Good.
I think I've come around.
Well, this is for people who don't know, and the security heads out in the audience are already, smirking to themselves, but security measures are whatever makes it so that the user is doing the most secure thing they will do. Which sounds weird. It's like, well, then they should just do the most secure thing, but humans won't. And so individual humans, this is why we still have SMS as a second factor, because it is still more secure than not having a second factor, even though there are security issues with it. So if there is nothing else for me to do as a second factor, I will do SMS because that's more secure than not having it. But if they allow me to do a pass key, or even just, like something like Google Authenticator or Authy, then I'll do that. I will choose the most secure thing. When you're talking about the general populace, you want to do the thing that is going to be the easiest for them to do, because they're not all like us. They're, as Kendrick Lamar says, they're not like us.
And even with password managers, I found a report done by security.org where they compared 2022 and 2023 in their password manager annual report.
Oh, yeah, I heard you talking about this. Yeah.
Yeah, they said that, so the 41% of respondents, and now these are kind of self-selecting respondents, but 41% said they memorized their passwords. But the next highest was using a password manager, and it was 34% of respondents said they use a password manager. That was extraordinary to me. It was up from 22% to 34%. So a third of Americans that responded to the survey said they use a password managers. However, 28% of those said that they reuse their one password, if you will, or their last password, that password they used to get in the password manager, they reuse that on other sites.
So this is why I'm a big believer in passkey. And I know folks who are tech savvy, like Ron Richards, are like, it's too hard. It's not explained well.
It is too hard.
And I see that. I do look at this password manager from Apple and think, that's kind of a pathway to passkey. Because when properly implemented widely, passkey will not be too hard. It will be just like this, except you won't have to have the password manager pick a password for you, and your password won't be stored in a database that can be hacked. Your passkey will stay on your device. But training people to the idea of like, all your passwords are on your device, so you want to have a more, secure way into your device just in case, is good, because that's also going to be true of passkeys.
Yeah, that's a good point. It puts you on the slippery slope we want you on.
Yeah, some slippery slopes are good. I'd never thought about it that way. Yeah, sometimes you slide down into a barrel of fun.
Exactly. I can prove that passkeys are too hard. I had 4 email exchanges with the folks at 1Password to help me get passkeys to work to get into my Google account. I could not solve it on my own.
You were storing them in a password manager, which actually makes it more complicated. Also, yes. Google's implementation of passkey has tripped me up before as well.
Yes.
Whereas the other day, I can't remember which service it was, but it said, and I was on Chrome OS. I was on my Chromebook. It said, "Do you want to log in with your passkey?" And I'm like, sure. I'm pretty sure there's no passkey for this on Chrome OS. And it said, there's no passkey for this on this device. Scan this with your phone. So I scanned the QR code with my phone. It unlocked on my phone it required Face ID to unlock, and then it unlocked me on my Chrome OS. And I'm like, that's how it should work.
No, because
guided me through it.
I get that all the time, where that now takes me so much longer. I get it on my Mac, where it's asking me to use my phone to scan a QR code. I would rather hit Command / and have 1Password enter my password. You've now made passkey harder. In that case, it saved you. I get that.
But it was more secure, and it was easy. It was easy to follow. No one else is going to do backslash,
Well, I'm just saying, I can, open my password manager. It was to me, if I've got a passkey stored on my Mac for that service, I shouldn't have to scan with my phone to get it.
Sure. You should be able to have a passkey, and when it's widely spread out, then you won't run into these situations. But as a bridge, in the meantime, the advantage to this will someday be, and this is all the problem with passkey is we're in Bluetooth 1999 world, will someday be worth it, because there won't be a password stored in a database.
I agree.
We're not to that yet.
I'm a fan, and I plan to keep trying to use it, but today it is hard. I wouldn't recommend it to most people.
I don't know that it's hard. It's just not
inconsistent.
It's not as easy as the password manager on the phone, right? That slippery slope is not slippery yet. It's just a slope.
Friction slope.
All right, let's check out the mailbag. I'm always behind, says Jeff. So someone may have already said so. Guess what, Jeff? No one said so. But lately, Scott Johnson has been proved right. I remember him saying that bland beige PC cases will come back in style. And Jeff sent us a link to a Verge article from Friday. Build your next PC like it's 1999. Silverstone's new FLP01 PC case is retro beige, so you could fill it with modern components. Look like the 90s, full of 2020s era components. Scott did call this. He's like, people are going to get back into beige PCs.
Why not? Every fashion comes around. I'm wearing bell bottoms again.
And I sent this to Scott. And I was like, Jeff noticed you're right. You nailed it. And Scott wrote back that he found wraps for the Xbox Series X and the MacBook to make your Xbox or your MacBook beige. And the MacBook one even has the 90s era Apple logo, the multicolor logo on the wrap.
The 6 colors. That's beautiful.
Yeah. Fantastic. Thank you, Jeff, for sending that along. And thank you, Allison, for being here today. If folks want to find out more about what you've got going on, where should they go?
Well, everything good starts with podfeed.com. And the latest episode of the NosillaCast, link in the show notes, of course, features an interview I did with my friend Pat, who is the Apple consultant I was mentioning earlier, and the story of how her next door neighbor came this close to losing $30,000 in a scam. And the story of the scam is so elaborate with so many people involved and the FBI is involved and lawyers and I'm using quotes around FBI. It's a tremendous story and it really is an interesting listen. So check that out at podfeed.com.
I'd say you're underselling it. That's really? Darknet Diaries level storytelling that you and Pat did. I was on the edge of my toes because I was walking while I was listening to it. I was like, oh no, where's it going next? So definitely go check that out. Also, check out our new show Behind the Data. I say our in that we support Andrea Jones-Roy, who is making that show. It launched during Experiment Week here on DTNS, but it is now its own show where Andrea discusses the data sets that help us understand crime, TV, and movies, the state of our health, the health of democracy. You want to learn how data sets help shape the world, you can find it at behindthedatashow.com. And Allison, I know you and Andrea have been getting to know each other too.
Oh, I am such a fan of this show. I think it's fantastic. She's a great interviewer, and the whole topic of data science is fascinating to me. But the one she did on the health tools that tell you whether you should hydrate or how many steps you should get, that kind of thing, was fascinating. And I just enjoyed the heck out of it. I am now her biggest fangirl, for sure.
Patrons, stick around for the extended show. Good Day Internet. Why is your weather app wrong? The Wall Street Journal has an article explaining that and a way to use those same apps to get better forecasts. You can also catch the show live Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern, 2100 UTC. Find out more about that at dailytechnewsshow.com/live. We'll be back tomorrow. Talk to you then.
The DTNS family of podcasts, helping each other understand.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.